If you're trying to develop more power on your one-handed backhand, then I'm going to help you with that in this video. So I'm going to break down the biomechanics so you understand what you're supposed to do technically, but then I'm going to focus on the timing, because the timing is the most critical aspect when it comes to generating power. If you hit the ball late, it's basically impossible to create power efficiently. So we're going to be looking at that in detail. I'm going to be talking about things that you might need to do in order to be able to time the ball well. So I'm going to be showing you some of the training exercises that I work on myself to develop my one-handed backhand. Now, this video here is taken from my practice session yesterday. I'm naturally a right-handed player, but for the last 2 years I've been relearning to play left-handed. So this is my left-handed backhand that I've been working on for a couple of years, and I want to show you some of the drills and explain how I've worked on things to get it to the point that it's at now. So let's start by talking about the biomechanics. Now, in order to create power, we want maximum racket head speed at the moment of contact. But obviously the hard part is we still need to get the ball to land in as well. So we've got to be able to control the angle of the racket face while the racket is moving quickly. And that's where the technique comes in, because it's easy to make the racket travel quickly, you just swat at it. But when that happens, you end up losing control of the racket face. So we use our kinetic chain in order to be able to transfer energy from the bigger muscles in the hips and the torso through into the shoulder, and then transfer that energy into the racket head speed at the moment of contact. So let's look at the biomechanics in a little bit more detail. Now, I'm going to play one in slow motion, and there's a few things that we need to look at. The first thing is going to be the preparation. If you want to hit a powerful one-handed backhand, you need to be set up in the right position with a good preparation, because if you don't do that, you won't be able to efficiently use your full kinetic chain. Now, one of the hardest parts about that for most people is the footwork. Instead of breaking that down in detail here, I've made a free footwork program to help you with that. So I'll place a link up in the corner, and I'll place a link down in the description so that you can get hold of the free footwork program and start to work on that side of things, because it's one of the biggest areas that kind of lets people down. But in terms of the actual preparation for the one-handed backhand, there's a few things that we need. The first one is going to be the position of the pelvis. So the pelvic bones, we want them pointing sideways towards the side fence, because we're going to be driving through our hips to initiate the swing. If we don't get our pelvis sideways, we can't drive through the hips. The next one is going to be the torso. Again, we want to get this pointing towards the side fence, or maybe a little bit past. It really depends on your flexibility, but more importantly, your timing. What I'm demonstrating here, or what I'm explaining here, is optimal biomechanics for creating power. But if you don't have good timing, if you're a little bit late on your shots, it's actually a bad idea to fully rotate so that you can see your back pointing, or your chest pointing towards the back fence, because it makes the timing harder. But in terms of optimization, we want it a little bit further rotated, so it's further than your pelvis, so then we can drive through the pelvis and then bring the torso in. The other part of the preparation is going to be the position that the racket is in. So I've taken it up higher because we're going to allow it to drop. We're going to bring it down into the slot position as we drive through that back hip, and that's going to start the kinetic energy and the racket head speed. So we've got the racket position up high. We then press play from there, and it drops down into the slot position. So I'm actively bringing it down. See, my hand is on the racket, or my other hand is on the racket. I'm actively bringing it into this slot position. I've already driven through my hip, and now I'm pretty close to the ball. The final motion is going to be a pulling motion through to contact there. So that's the biomechanics that we're concerned with. After that, the follow through is just a product of momentum. I'm not thinking about the follow through in any way. I've swung in a certain way, and now because of that swing, my racket has followed through. If I was trying to hit with more topspin, the follow through would look a little bit different, but again, it wouldn't be a thought process about the follow through. It would just be thinking about that swing. Now, let's talk about the timing in more detail, because like I said at the start, this is the most important piece. Well, it's the most important piece of every shot, but especially on the one-handed backhand, because we need to use our kinetic chain to create the racket head speed, but we need to have done all of the work so that we're making contact out in front of the body. So if we watch it in slow motion, this is where we're trying to make contact somewhere out in front of the body. So I've done all the hard work with the bigger muscles. I've driven through the kinetic chain, and now we're making contact way out in front of the body. But let's back that up a little bit. This is why the timing is so critical, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen. So if you look at where the ball is now, I'm just about to start my swing, so I've kind of finalized my preparation there. If you look at how far the ball is away from me, the ball has just bounced now. It's this far away. With the particular feed that I'm dealing with, this is the point at which I need to start my swing. So now I'm starting to drive through this back hip. I'm trying to throw this back hip around. As I drive through the back hip, notice that my racket actually extends backwards a little bit as it starts the racket drop. So I'm driving through my hip, the racket is dropping, the torso is starting to kick in, and the torso is starting to kick in and rotate as I've kind of reached this slot position with my racket pointing towards the back of the court. If you look how far the ball is away now, the ball is now pretty close to me. So it's pretty close in this position, and we've only got a couple of frames in between there and the contact point. Okay, so this is the critical piece about timing. You've got to get this to happen at exactly the right moment to make contact in the way that you want. So from this position, if I start my swing now, as I've started it, if I swing slower than I choose to swing here, if I choose to swing slower, I'm going to end up hitting the ball late. So in theory, if I'm swinging at a slower speed, the ball arrives in the ideal contact position, but because I've swung at a slower speed, I'm now here with my racket. So I'm making contact at this point, and this is what happens to so many people. They haven't finished going through the sequential motion using the kinetic chain when they make contact, and the reason that they haven't done that is a couple of things. It's either that they aren't able to accurately read and predict how far the ball is away, or they're not able to coordinate and adjust the speed of their movements based on the ball they're dealing with. So this is the challenge in terms of timing. And if you're hitting the ball late, doing everything as I've described here is actually a bad idea. So you can see in my preparation, my torso is pointing further back than the side fence. It's not pointing towards the side fence. I've rotated further. You can see the slot position. My racket is pointing towards the back fence, and that's great for maximum power. But if you don't time this right, this is going to mess you up and prevent you from hitting a good quality shot. So depending on your level of timing, the better plan is actually to abbreviate this, not rotate quite as far, not get that extreme slot position that you see from some of the pros, and kind of abbreviate your swing and just focus on making a good clean contact. So this is really important stuff to consider, and this is where so many people get messed up, is they're trying to copy the pros, but their bodies don't work as well as the pros do, and because of that, they don't have the timing, and they end up spinning their wheels, not really getting anywhere. So the way that I've managed to get my left-handed, one-handed backhand to look like it does at the moment is a combination of on-court work, understanding the pieces that I've just explained to you in terms of the biomechanics and the timing, but also doing a lot of work off the court to improve how my body functions. So as I mentioned a moment ago, with the timing, we've kind of got two pieces. We've got the visual component and we've got the coordination component. You have to be able to accurately read how fast the ball is traveling and how far the ball is away in order to start your swing at the right time. And you then have to sequence your body in the correct order. So you have to have the level of coordination required to drive through your hip and your torso, followed by the shoulder coming through. And you need to be able to adjust the speed of that swing based on the ball that you're dealing with. If either the visual system doesn't work well enough, you can't read how far the ball is away, or your coordination isn't good enough, you won't be able to time the ball and hit it like I'm hitting here. And this is something that I had to do with myself. Growing up as a right-handed player, before I messed my collarbone up and had to change hands, my timing wasn't very good. I couldn't hit a one-handed backhand with my right hand before like I'm hitting here with my left hand, because I had issues with my visual system that prevented me from judging the speed and the distance of the ball. And I had issues with my coordination that meant I wasn't able to make the adjustments. So what I do with my own game is I work on those things using brain-based training to improve my skill level. And as my skill level improves, my ability to execute on the tennis court goes up along with it. So what I do is simple training exercises. I'll show you a couple of them. This is a vision exercise that's designed to improve a specific visual skill called convergence. This is a really important visual skill for your ability to judge distance and depth, and in order to be able to track the ball as it comes towards you. If you can't do this in a certain way, it tells us about the parts of the brain that process visual information and create eye movements. So I practice this sort of thing on a regular basis. And you can see here, I'm doing it in different head positions, because when we're playing tennis, we have to move our head around, but as we move our head around, it changes the way our brain uses our visual system. So our vision training has to reflect the requirements on the court. But this is the sort of exercise I work on very regularly to improve how my visual system functions. Now, as you can see, it's really simple, just holding a pen, bringing it in towards the bridge of my nose, trying to keep my eyes fixed on it. You can very easily work on this sort of thing yourself.
And in addition to training my visual system, I do a lot of work on improving my coordination. So here I'm doing some banded wrist circles designed to train and improve my level of coordination and control over my wrist and forearm, so that I'm then able to control the angle of my racket face more effectively at the moment of contact. So as you can see, I've just got a band attached to the net post. I'm having the band pull me in different directions. While I'm doing that, I'm trying to make a perfect circle with my wrist. The band's pulling me one way, I'm having to correct it. This drives the parts of the brain that create and coordinate movement to work really hard, and by doing this on a consistent basis, it improves your level of coordination. So it looks like a very simple exercise, but I've literally used this sort of thing to transform my own abilities, so that now I'm able to reliably hit one-handed backhands with power and consistency.
So if you want to be able to hit your backhand with more power, then I highly recommend giving those two different exercises a try. But if you want to dive into it a little bit more and you really want to take your game to the next level, this is what I help tennis players with. I teach them how to use brain-based training to improve their skill level so that then they can play higher level tennis. I've created a free class that's going to teach you a lot more about it. I'll place a link up there, and I'll place a link down in the description so you can check that class out. So it's going to explain brain-based training in a little bit more detail, and it's also going to explain a little bit about my program and how I work with players and the next steps that are involved, if that's something that you would like to explore further. If you've got any questions about what I've covered in today's video, leave them down below, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you on another video.